Big week in Alabama. So much to talk about, whether it's the roster, whether it's Nick Saban, whether it's their play-by-play announcer, some guys committing to play. So Alabama adding to their recruiting class. We're going to get into all of that here. Welcome to the Bama Tailgate YouTube channel. It's time for Sunday Rollback. Let's get this thing rolling, everybody. And by the way, Roll Tide. What do you say, everybody? And thank you for hanging out with us here. I'm Mick Gillispie with Brett Elmore. We call him Big Elmo. And we're getting ready to rock and roll here and talk some Alabama. It's time for Sunday Rollback. I want to remind you guys that Brett is on the socials at Brett Elmore Show. I'm at Broadcaster Mick. And now we're on Facebook. You can check us out there at Bama Tailgate Show on Facebook and obviously here on YouTube. But great to have all of you guys with us as we talk about the Crimson Tide on this Sunday week in review. And yesterday, Brett, it was another banner day for Alabama, this time at the All-American game in San Antonio. High school players, they take their hats, they put them on, and they say, Roll Tide. And Alabama got a couple of four-star commits.
Yeah, they did, and let's dive into it. One of them, a running back commitment. Want to get your thoughts on this guy, Daniel Hill, four-star running back from Meridian, Mississippi. And, he has some it comes from a good line of, good bloodline. His father, Demetrius Hill, former Mississippi State defensive lineman. Your thoughts about Mr. Hill, the four-star RB?
Yeah, I mean, it's another example of Alabama netting players out of Mississippi. But Meridian, even though it's a Mississippi town, it's really close to West Alabama. They're in the Tuscaloosa media market. Obviously, Roydell Williams transferring out. You got some great running backs that are in right now. But the running back position is one that you want to have a very deep pool of guys you can count on. And Daniel Hill, one of the best in the state of Mississippi, and he's coming over to join the Crimson Tide. So I think this is a really good get. Plus, it's another add to this class that just continues to get better and better.
He had offers from South Carolina, Mississippi State, Tennessee, and Auburn, along with some other top programs, but a big get there. And then also during the game, another big commitment, a four-star safety from
Daytona Beach.
Yeah, Daytona. I forgot about that. Daytona. Yeah. Here he comes, Xavier Mincey. I think they call him Bam Bam on Twitter, but he's 6'2", 187 pounds, and good to add him to the roster.
Yeah, another big-time talent. He's the seventh guy that can play in the secondary that Alabama's added, and they're losing a bunch of guys in this spot. Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terrion Arnold, two that are going to the NFL. You got to have, in this day and age of football, with the amount of throwing that goes on, you need to have talent in that secondary position. Obviously, you get that opportunity to spend some time with Nick Saban. He's part of coaching the secondary. T-Rob does a great job of that as well. So you when you come to Alabama and you play in that position, right now is definitely the time to do that. Alabama continues to put guys in the NFL from this position, and another four-star that is added to this class. And there were a bunch of teams after Mincey, or as you like to call him, Bam Bam. And he's my favorite Bam Bam since the Flintstones, and, of course, Bam Bam Bigelow.
Yeah, Bam Bam Bigelow for sure. Right off the top rope, and the bald head with the head is awesome. But a lot of the recruiting experts kind of liken him to Terrion Arnold, which is pretty flattering, I would say. He's a multi-sport athlete too. This guy can play basketball. He runs track and field. So he's a hoss. He's an athlete, and nice to see him commit another four-star going to Tuscaloosa.
You know what I love is that Alabama has some big-time guys making their commitments in front of the entire world of high school football. And at these showcases, right? These
Mhm.
guys could have committed on the early signing period. But what they do is they'll sign and then they don't say anything, and then they get there and they make that announcement then. And it really does help bolster the reputation of the school and the class. It's a big part of what we're doing right now in college athletics. And I remember before Nick Saban got to Tuscaloosa, we didn't have a lot of these players going up there and putting the Alabama hat on. We're so used to it now because of the fact that Saban has brought this to Tuscaloosa, right, since he got there in 2007. He's gotten these blue-chip guys, but it's still a big deal, and today was another really good day for Alabama. Now, I do have to tell you about this guy, Brett, from Chicago, edge rusher, Chris Burgess. Thought he was coming to Tuscaloosa. A lot of people really felt like he would come. Alabama was at the top of his list. He ended up picking Notre Dame. So one got off the hook. But besides that, you add Mincey, you add Hill, and this recruiting class for 2024 is better and better. And as you see guys, and we're going to talk about this coming up, leave the program to go to either the NFL or transfer out, you've got to bring new players in. And Alabama is the best in the country in developing high school players, right up there with Georgia. But Alabama's been the best. And when I say that, it's not my bias. It's the fact that look at the amount of players that have come to Alabama and then have gone to the NFL and found success. And coming in as a freshman, working themselves to the big time.
Yeah, it's a big recruiting tool whenever you look at everyone that has went on to do big things in the NFL. And I was reading a story yesterday. I forgot how many players were in this year's Pro Bowl or being selected for the Pro Bowl. It's just, man, it's astonishing when you turn on a pro game on Sunday and it's like you see Alabama players all over the roster.
Crazy.
It's crazy.
Let me remind you guys that it's a great time to head over to Pearl River Resort. You got everything kind of converging right now. The national championship game in college football. You can bet on that at the Timeout Sports Lounge. If you like the NFL, the playoffs are coming up. You can bet on that at the Timeout Sports Lounge. If you're a NASCAR guy, bet on that there. Hockey, soccer, they have it all. NBA basketball, college basketball. It's an hour and a half drive from Tuscaloosa, 2 hours from Birmingham. It's not far from anywhere in the state of Alabama or around the area, really close to Meridian, by the way. So check it out. The Golden Moon Casino, Pearl River Resort. Not only do they have the sports book, but they also have table games and slots. They have a spa. They have the Dancing Rabbit Golf Course, which is amazing as well. It's the Augusta that you can play. The top course in the state of Mississippi, one of the top in the entire South, right? And then also on top of all of that, some great acts coming up. You got Ron White, the Wallflowers. Find out for yourself at Pearl River Resort, and we appreciate them being part of what we do here. All right, Brett, let's talk some hoops, man. Let's talk some hoops. It's that time of year where we talk some basketball. Today, Alabama goes on the road, and they beat the Vanderbilt Commodores. What'd you think of the game?
Ups and down, ebb and flow game last night. I tell you, we got off to a pretty quick start. I think we were up by 18 at one point, and then saw the lead dwindle down there to 4, I think, right before halftime. And we didn't score in the final 5 minutes of the opening half, but we survived, got out of Nashville with another win, and Coach Oates has had a lot of success there in Nashville. And what it was, 78-75 was the final score, and 21 points for Mark Sears, 16 for Ryland Griffin. Both of those guys at double figures with Wrightsell. He had 11. So big win, and they'll be back in action coming up, I think, Tuesday against South Carolina.
This basketball team is one of the best scoring teams in the country. The problem is that they got to do a better job of playing defense. I thought that the effort was there, but the three-point shooting is in and out, right? They get hot, then they get cold. But this isn't as good of a defensive team as we've seen in the past, right? And this is going to give them a lot of problems because even with big leads, they have a tough time holding on to them because of the fact that they don't play great defense. So it's not your typical Nate Oates team in the fact that he loves a team that plays defense, but at the same time, the fact that they can score and he's going to continue to push them to play better defense tells me that eventually this team could be one to reckon with. What I love about them, Brett, is that they went out and played one of the toughest non-conference schedules in the country.
Yeah.
And, and that's a criticism that I've had. And I've talked about it before about the women's team. I think we all forget about the women's team because it's not really a popular sport, but it's because they haven't won in so long. And they play the cupcakes, and then they get in the conference, and and then it's always kind of at the bottom of the conference. The men's program is one that I look at and I go, you know what? This men's basketball team is doing the things that it takes to stay successful. They've won the 2 SEC tournaments. They've won the regular season in the SEC. Nate Oates has brought the ability to go out and get players. Yeah, the arena's not good, and Alabama's got to do something about that, but they have one of the elite coaches in the country. This is just a squad, and it's every year now in basketball, even more than football, where you just have a completely different roster from year to year. So thank goodness that Alabama has Nate Oates, who can go out and recruit and give them an opportunity to figure it out. But right now, watching that game against Vandy and kind of the non-conference schedule, they get hot and they'll score. They'll get up on you 25 points, and then all of a sudden it's tied. It's crazy how bad they get. They go from good to bad.
Yeah, you bat an eye, and all of a sudden, you're looking at the screen, and it's like, what happened to the lead? They shot 49% from the field and 40% from three-point range. I mean, they shot the ball well, but yeah, the defense is gonna have to come around quick. But yeah, Gamecocks come to town for the first league home game Tuesday night, 6:00 tip-off, and that game will be on the SEC network.
So there we go. All right, let's talk a little bit of football. I know that's what you guys really want to talk about, but I threw the basketball in there as well. Brad, it's time, right? It's time. We got to start talking hoops. But update. We talked about this yesterday, and we're going to keep on talking about this as this roster continues to transform itself, right? We talked about adding Mincey and Hill. Well, we're losing guys to the NFL. That list includes some guys that are going to be really high draft picks. Kool-Aid McKinstry on that list. J.C. Latham on that list as well. You're talking about Terrion Arnold, who's going to be drafted. And Alabama is going to have to reload. But you also got some guys that maybe aren't going to be as high a draft picks, but they're true seniors. And we'll see those guys go to the Senior Bowl. Run me through the list, though, of everyone that right now is leaving for the NFL.
Yeah, currently the NFL draft looks like this. Kool-Aid McKinstry, you mentioned him. Terrion Arnold, outside linebacker, of course, edge rusher guy. Dallas Turner, J.C. Latham, Chris Braswell, Justin Ibakwe, Jermaine Burton, Tresman Marshall, Will Reichert, Jalen Key, and Darian Dalcourt, all currently in the NFL, are declared for the NFL draft. So that's, let me count them here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 so far leaving for the draft.
Yeah, and we expected that. But even with all of these guys that are leaving, I don't think this is and I talked about this yesterday. I don't think this is as much of a blow to the program as it was last year when you had to replace Bryce Young and you had to replace Will Anderson Jr., because on top of that, you had to replace both coordinators. Yeah. And it feels like Alabama is kind of poised now to make another run to the national championship. And, I want to get into that as well. We'll do that later in the show. But the Vegas odds right now tell us that they feel like Alabama is in great position to make a run next year as well. They have a really tough schedule, and they're going to have to do it with new corners. I mean, they're losing both corners. But with that said, you go back to guys like Mincey, Bam Bam, of those 7 guys, and then whoever you had on the roster already, you expect that somebody's going to step up and make some plays there, and they'll be ready to go by the time we start the regular season.
Yeah, that's true. And we'll get into the odds here in just a few minutes. I've got to pull those up for you, Mick. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
All right, let's talk about players going to the Senior Bowl. Chris Braswell going to the Senior Bowl. Will Reichert, the kicker, going to the Senior Bowl. The Senior Bowl is a really big event in college football. It takes place in Mobile, Alabama, but players from all over the country go to the Senior Bowl, and they do a fantastic job of putting on that event down in the port city.
Yeah, they do. Mobile, always the host of the Senior Bowl, and yeah, it's always a big deal. And I think they air that now on the NFL Network. But we do have some players. Well, as a matter of fact, we have four. No, we have three going to the Senior Bowl. Reichert will be there. Mbakwe will be there on the defensive line, and Chris Braswell, the outside linebacker, he has declared for the Senior Bowl.
Yep. So we'll be keeping an eye on that as well, and I know you guys will. And some of you guys actually drive down because if you're an autograph hound, that's definitely the spot to do it. You can get some great autographs there at the at the Senior Bowl. All right, transfer portal. We've been keeping an eye on this. I'd say the biggest surprise to me was Roydell Williams into the transfer portal, not going to the NFL. And I guess it's because he probably wasn't going to be drafted very high, although I thought he was a really good player. Seth McLaughlin is leaving center at Alabama and going to Ohio State. Obviously, he does some things right because Ohio State would not want him to go there. We just see the bad snaps. There's more to it than that, and maybe they have a way to fix it. Maybe they feel like, hey, if we bring this guy in, we can kind of get him back on track with the snaps. I just felt like it was probably a good mutual move for him, but he's going to another big time program.
Yeah, and there's no telling what kind of plan they have for him. Will he maybe play another position on the line? Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, they may put him there at center, but he's going to Ohio State. Who else is in the portal? I noticed that Terrence Ferguson, the offensive lineman, he's going to be visiting Florida State. And late last night, another guy that had hit the portal, Mick, that we had talked about a little bit in a couple of other shows, Earl Little. Late last night, he committed to Florida State.
Okay. Yeah. So that's what's going to happen. I mean, like these guys are going to go other places. We knew that this was coming. Obviously Florida State is going to be looking for a lot of different guys. And, he may end up teaming up with Ferguson, the offensive lineman there. Right. I mean, who knows, but nothing really surprises me when it comes to that. But when you're bringing in all of these different guys, you're going out into the transfer portal and you're bringing guys in, you're bringing in a huge recruiting class. It's a numbers game. And some of these guys are like, you know what, I'm going to go somewhere else and gives me my best chance. Or maybe you look at the competition and you go, I'm never going to get on the field here.
Right. And like you mentioned, and it's a great phrase that is now a part of college football is roster management. And that's all a part of it. This time of year is folks hitting the portal, folks coming in from the portal. You got folks going to the draft. But, I mean, we have a whole list of people that's entered the portal since the season ended. Chaz Preston, Miles Ketzelman, Seth McLaughlin, we had mentioned Ferguson, we'd mentioned Holstein. He's supposed to had visited Pitt, I believe. Carry-on Story, Kristen Story, Goodwine, Benson. We mentioned Little, Ian Jackson, and Roydell Williams. That's a pretty big list of folks, and that's just the ones since the season ended. We had 5 enter the portal before the season ended.
Yeah. So, and that's you expect it. It still isn't as bad as what Georgia was going through.
Right. Yeah.
So, and you hope that these guys do okay. And I tell you what, the comment section, you guys have been really supportive of the players, and it's good to see. I mean, you want these, as long as they don't go to Auburn, right? I mean, like, you go to Auburn, we hate you, yeah. But the rest of the places you deal with, and kind of the way that things go. All right. We talked about this earlier this week. My information sources tell me that Eli Gold's days as Alabama's play-by-play broadcaster are over. I wanted to ask you about that. I mean, obviously nothing's set in stone. He's beloved in the state. The comments definitely reflected that. I said it. I mean, as a guy that's done play-by-play, on one hand, I love Eli Gold's legacy, listening to him on radio, something that I did for years and years. The skill set has definitely diminished. I wish there was a way to kind of, keep him maybe where he's not trying to call plays in real time, but maybe where he's just talking, like telling stories, making us laugh, like, reliving some of the great moments. But it just doesn't work that way. At least it doesn't normally work that way. But you own a station, WJLX in Jasper. You're an Alabama affiliate. You, like me, grew up listening to Eli Gold. What are your thoughts on the changing of the guard, if you will?
Eli's the guy that's been doing the games for 35, 36 years?
Since 88.
Yeah, that's a long time. And I remember as a kid sitting on the porch with my dad, and he'd be grilling or whatever, and we would be listening to Alabama football, the pregame and everything, getting ready for, just to listen to the ball game. And yeah, we're an affiliate here in Jasper. And Eli has, when he first came to Alabama, he got a lot of pushback because let's face it, he was from New York, and a lot of folks didn't want that. They were used to the John Forneys of the world, and
which
so
John Forney was a legend too.
John Forney was a legend. I remember when John Forney passed away. I was a kid. We were coming back from vacation and coming down I-65 in Birmingham, listening to the radio, and the news came over the radio. John Forney had passed away, and I thought my dad was going to cry. Yeah. I mean, he listened to John Forney for years. John was before my time, but back to Eli. I mean, Eli, he has called some of the, greatest calls there in Alabama football history. And if he doesn't get his contract renewed, it's a lot of folks are going to miss him. I thought him and Snake Stabler, that was probably the best duo there, and no disrespect to any of the other guys on the broadcast, and I bet you a lot of them would probably say Snake was killer on the air, because he was. You have so many analysts, Mick, who like to really go down deep into the X's and O's, and they kind of talk over the average fan's head a little bit. Snake wasn't that way.
No. It's entertainment, Brett, and that's what it comes down to. It's stories and entertainment. When he left and Phil Savage came on, Phil, a great football guy, but it felt too much like I was in a boardroom, watching like a screen somewhere. I wanted the stories. I want to hear about the time that Coach Bryant found you at the floor Bama. I want to hear about, what it was like being in the NFL. And it's tough to find that, because guys of his stature, Snake stature, don't do this stuff anymore because they've made so much money. They don't need the money, and they don't have the time to do it. It was the perfect pairing back then, and normally it's guys that don't have the high stature that come on and do the radio, and and that's cool too. Like and I enjoy those guys as well. Honestly, as much as Eli's going to be missed, I think that we've got to kind of take our hats off and appreciate the fact that he did a great job, but also that we have Chris Stewart. We're really lucky to have Chris Stewart ready to step in and take this job. And what I'm going to tell you guys is this: listen to some of the other schools. I don't want to point out any other schools in particular on the radio broadcast, but go and listen to where they are right now compared to where they were in the past with their last broadcaster. We have a guy who has been around, paid his dues. He's been doing Alabama sports, and other schools would love to have him. And he's in his prime, And that's why I'm saying I wish there was another way to incorporate and Eli Gold, who you don't want it to be like John Forney's last few years. Remember that. It was just hard. And it kind of felt like that a little bit this year to me.
It was
But
heartbreaking with Forney.
Yeah, right. It's tough. I mean, when you're sitting there and you don't know what's going on in the game and he's getting the down in the distance wrong. And, and it's like, if you don't have a television set in front of you, it's hard to follow, but it's a tough sport to call. With that said, we're lucky. We got Chris Stewart. And we need to appreciate him as well. I just hope that when it all kind of comes together, everybody's happy. It'd be nice to kind of send Eli off, with a great farewell, and then also appreciate the fact that we have a really great broadcaster that's there now. Because not every school has that. I'm just telling you. And the art of broadcasting on the radio has been diminished because the guys that make the decision on who broadcasts now are sales guys. They're not broadcast people, and they don't know a damn thing about what's good on the radio. All they care about, Brett, and you know what I'm talking about, is making a buck. I mean, listen to, the pregame shows listen to the Alabama pregame show. It's like 100 Golden Flake commercials. And it's not like it used to be where you would listen on there and get a lot of good information. It's like, here's another Golden Flake commercial. Here we go. With this commercial, it's like that stuff's great. And I get it. You got to pay the bills, but it isn't supposed to be commercials for content. It's supposed to be content with commercials to pay for it.
Sure. And
just as a radio, veteran, I guess you could call me, and definitely someone that loves the art. I just feel like we're really fortunate to have Chris and Tyler Watts as well on the call because they're really good at it.
Yeah, they do a great job, and too, I'll say this, and you know how it is when you go call a football game, you try to wherever you set up or want to set up, you want to be at midfield, and the colleges right now are not giving the radio crews or anything a very good vantage point. Calling a game from the end zone or near the end zone or the corner of the end zone is very, very hard, especially when you're used to doing it at midfield. And if you go back and watch some of the booth cam videos, even with Eli, hell, they were watching it off of a TV monitor half the time because the teams were on the other end of the field and you can't see.
Yeah, and that is a great point as well. And I talked about that in that video because not only, do you have the trouble of, kind of being, at 70 years old and not, it's tougher, right? And dealing with everything else that goes along with it. Now you can't even see the field. But the bottom line is this, is with NIL here, and they've always been there to make money. They're going to put the best customers in that, that 50-yard spot. Yeah. And then, the broadcast booth is getting pushed over more and more and more. And that's just kind of the way that it is, not just in football, but that's the same as it is in baseball and other sports as well, just because they want to put their premier customers there now. So, but you're right, man, that makes it tough on top of it. And, I don't know, man. I just feel like it's a lost art in itself. I mean, how many times do you turn on the radio and feel like you really get like the old time, like painting picture call. And instead of like, it's like so-and-so's nephew whose uncle was a broadcaster or dad was a broadcaster. So they automatically get the job. They stink, or it's like, it's like some guy, I don't even know how. It's so funny when you go through the nepotism and the other reasons that they hire people these days, and what you get is a bad product. So, with all that said, my point is we're so lucky. We're lucky that we had Eli Gold. We're lucky that we got Chris Stewart, and we're lucky that the play-by-play aspect, which you carry on your radio station, is really good. I'd like to see the ancillary programming improve, but that may be the way that it is all across the country, where it's like, hey man, we really just got to get in like 110 commercials before kickoff. So
yeah,
get ready
whenever I print off that format sheet, I look at it and I'm thinking, Oh, there's 8 pages of this.
Yeah,
Really?
right. Yeah, which I'm a
Oh,
fan of
boy.
Golden Flake. I like chips.
You like chips, everything's good, but damn, there's a lot of spots here.
That's right. That's right. Guys, thanks for hanging out with us on Sunday Rollback. We're not done yet, but what I do want to tell you is that you can use the promo code Bama Tailgate for a discount at newlifeart.com. They've got that 4th and 31 picture, right? The print. It's called Grave Digger. In my mind, that was the play that Daniel Moore has painted up, and it's exciting to see that. Brett, you can't wait to get it in your studio. One of the all-time classic endings in a place where some good seasons have ended over the years, Jordan Hare. Well, that one was it was a soul-crushing win for the Crimson Tide, and you can get that or whatever at newlifeart.com. But a lot of cool stuff, man.
Oh, yeah. Yep, got to go there and use that promo code Bama Tailgate.
All right, let's talk about the odds for next year, Brett. The odds for the national championship, and then we're going to talk Heisman, but let me talk national championship. Next year, Vegas has put their odds out, and look who's at the top. It was Georgia, then Bama, but now both teams are plus 500 to win the national championship next year. That means they'd have to go through the college football playoff. These two teams are matched up in Tuscaloosa. You've got a 12-team playoff for the first time. We've talked about Alabama's roster, adding, subtracting, but a lot of the main stars are going to be back next year. Were you surprised at all to see Bama at the top of this list?
No, because I'm used to seeing them at the top of the list, it seems like. Yeah, you're right. We play them September 28th. That's one meeting. You could conceivably think about it. I mean, you could conceivably have to play these guys 3 times next year. I mean, think about it. I mean, you've got them on a regular season schedule. The top 2 teams go to the championship game. Doesn't matter about the divisions anymore. So if it's Bama and Georgia, well, you have to play them again, and then they'll probably both make the playoff, and then they may meet again. I don't know. But, yeah, it's going to be Bama, Georgia, and then what did I say? Ohio State and Texas, I think, are the others there toward the top. But, it's a dead heat between the two.
That's normal for Alabama to be at the top, but this is a much different offseason than last year. We were just wondering last year, what was it going to look like? And the way that the season started and everything else. And then Nick Saban got the ship corrected and look at the way that things ended. It wasn't a win in the Rose Bowl, but the fact that we got there, where this program's going, I think the ball coach has at least one more natty under his belt before he retires. And I don't think he's retiring, Brett. That's something else that we talked about this week because Pat McAfee on his show asked him, and he said, "Well, you know what? I guess I'm getting old." And then he told us what he tells the players, which you thought was pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, if the player asks, are you going to be here, for 4 years? He asks them the same question, and you really can't answer that. But I don't know. Yeah, I think he's here to stay. And like we've mentioned in these previous shows, he still has the juice. And yeah, he's 72. But
young 72.
He's a young 72.
Yeah,
he's not your typical. They don't make him like they used to, like he says. He's just that way.
My grandmother lived in 95. She was still like very active into her 90s. When she was in her 70s, she looked really young. So it's not it was actually my great grandmother, but Maul, from the team of Maul and Daddy John, by the way. But the Maul side of the Maul and Daddy John team into her 90s. And in her 70s, she was still, not old. I mean, just still going at it. So it all depends on your genetics, when it comes to how these things work out. But there's still a fire there. We talked about that, and I'm not expecting Nick Saban to retire at all this week. I mean, I know some Dennis Dodd wrote that story. People kind of want to retire him. You guys are sick of hearing it. I think even his daughter kind of put something out on Instagram that gave us an idea that he's coming back. He's coming back.
Yeah.
Get ready. I'll be back. All right. Last thing on Sunday rollback. The Heisman. How about the Heisman odds? The Heisman odds for 2024. Jalen Milroe is numero uno to win the Heisman. Now, he ended up 6th last year. We didn't see his best performance in the Rose Bowl, but boy, leading into it, he looked really good. And another year, maybe a center that can snap him the ball without throwing it over his head 25 times during the season. And this guy could be a Heisman Trophy winner. What do you think?
I think I thought he was going to be toward the top of the game. Yeah. 7-1 odds, and then I was looking, Beck, I believe, is right behind him from Georgia.
Yeah. Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers are 8-1 odds. Dylan Gabriel, who's transferred to Oregon from Oklahoma, 9-1. Will Howard of Ohio State, 10-1. J.J. McCarthy of Michigan, 16-1. Is he coming back?
I guess
how many years does this guy get? I got a feeling he's going into the NFL.
Surely.
Yeah. Nico of Tennessee. I'm not even going to try his last name. 16-1. You got Connor Wegman of Texas A&M, 18-1. Jackson Arnold of Oklahoma, 18-1, and then Jackson Dart of Ole Miss, 18-1. So there you go.
Who do you like?
I'll tell you what, Jackson Dart to me might be if you were just putting some money down. Yeah, well, if you were putting some money down and you said, hey, who could possibly win this? That if I put some money down, it would be a great payoff, but not that far of a stretch. I'd say Jackson Dart. I mean, you got him coming back again. You got all of the players that Ole Miss added from the transfer portal, including some really great weapons. Yeah, I know they lost their running back, but they won games without him this year. I think Jackson Dart is a player with that offense, the creativity that Lane Kiffin has, and what they have coming back. And the fact that they only play Georgia, they don't even play Alabama this year. The beginning of that schedule's soft. They're going to be at least 6-0 unless something goes terribly bad. If J.J. McCarthy comes back, which I think he's going to the NFL, and they win the national championship on Monday, he'd be a great pick as well, because, Michigan being champs and having the quarterback come back, he didn't get enough recognition this year. That's all going to change. And I really like him. I mean, I talked about him before being a Jay Barker type of guy. The fact that people try to use the term game manager, I think that's BS. Game manager to me is it's a way to take a shot at a winner. Winning matters. That's why you're out there. You're out there to win. You're not out there to try to get a bunch of stats. You're out there to try to get that stat at the end that looks like this, a W. And you don't win all these games like him, 26-1. We'll see if he ends up 27-1, unless you're good. But I think Jim Harbaugh is going to the NFL. I think he's going to be right there with them, and I think that's that. But anyway, he'd be another guy that I'd kind of keep an eye on too. How about you?
I still think Harbaugh is going to go for to the pros, but we'll see.
Well, yeah, everybody does. I mean, it's out now where teams are vetting him. He's the hottest name right now in NFL football.
There you go. Very good, Mick. I guess tomorrow we could play Where in the World is Mick at? It just seems like you're out and about.
Well, look, we are in we're on Fish River right now, enjoying a little downtime, but that didn't stop me, Brett, from getting on here and talking to all of our peeps. Sunday rollback doesn't stop. We just got to keep on rolling with it. But anyway, hey guys, thanks for hanging out with us. Give me your comments. Tell me what you guys think. Maybe, there's something that we missed on the show, things that you want to talk about, show ideas coming up. We're going to need them because, it's getting to that point where it's going to be that dead time of the year, and we're going to need stuff to talk about. So throw those to us. But we appreciate all the comments, all the views, being part of what we do here at the Bama Tailgate YouTube channel. Make sure that you like and subscribe. And you know what? What I'm hoping for is that we just keep on building with honest and but fun content, where we can get on here and have a conversation. And the fact that no one's standing over our heads means that we can be honest. We can have a good time. So that's what we're going to try to keep doing, Brett. Roll Tide, buddy. Great job. And for all of you guys hanging out with us, make sure that you like and subscribe. I also want to throw a shout out to our friend Chad Anderson with Modern Lending. He's helped over 10,000 families get into new homes, and maybe even a vacation home like the one that we're in right now that doesn't belong to us, but Modern Lending can help you get there. He's an investment consultant and an Airbnb expert. Find out for yourself at This Chat Is Real on all the socials. That's Modern Lending. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys, and we will talk to you again tomorrow. Roll Tide.